All right, daughter of mine, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
All right, well, welcome to Moving On. This is the special episode from the Retired Podcast where we talk about moving on and what they've been so far as moving on from the death of my father last year, and then just a couple weeks ago we lost Grandma. So that's what we're here for today. And I think one of the things I've learned best is that each death, like each birth, is its own thing. And although there are similarities, it's a distinct situation.
Absolutely, I would agree with that. I mean, it kind of makes sense that each person is different, just intrinsically as who they are, that they would, leave this world differently.
I want to read to you from this writing that I did when I was doing my master's back when you were a little girl.
Yeah.
It was back in 1997. This class was called, it was a women's studies class. It was called Mother, Woman, Person. And
You notice how person is the last thing there? Mother, woman, person.
let's just unite in it all, right? And then, so this one we had to do an analysis of our mother. So to start with analysis of my mother, and this is based on a lot of the readings that we did and so forth, I started with my grandmother. So here we go, and I thought we'd just have a conversation and see what comes up, and remembering my mom. So my mother, Patricia, was born in 1936. Her mother, Marie, was born in Buffalo, New York, in 1902. Marie's parents were Mary and Joseph.
No way.
Yes.
Okay.
Mary and Joseph. Mary was from Germany and arrived in the U.S. at the age of 3.
Okay.
Joseph was from Buffalo, and they sometimes spoke German at home, so the children couldn't understand, and they stopped speaking German because of the anti-German feelings of the era. Marie did not graduate from high school. She got to about the 8th grade.
Wow.
I remember thinking it was 4th grade, but it's actually 8th grade. So
A little bit more.
she went to work at Lark's Soap Company. She worked then as a clerk for a railroad. And her mother died when Marie was 22 years old, leaving her as the oldest daughter to tend for the 5 younger siblings. And of course, her father, right?
Oh yeah, no, of course, because that's your oldest baby, right?
So she's 22. Imagine ourselves at 22. And she's just started in the world of working and moving up in the world. And now she's having to leave it and go take care of the family.
Yeah, screech to a halt and change your plans, right?
Yeah, her younger sister was 12 years old, and Grandma had to quit her job to run the household. My mother says that Marie was a pretty woman who was. This is so funny because like, can just, ask mom, you describe your mother. And she says, Marie was a pretty woman who was friendly, kind, outgoing, and made friends easily. Marie was a religious Catholic. And grandmother's female friends were of German ancestry, like herself, but she had a tendency to date men of Irish ancestry.
Ooh.
To date. I was like, wow. So she's going around dating
Rebel.
people.
Rebel.
Wow. One of her younger sisters, Dorothy, ended up marrying an ex-beau. In her mid-20s, Grandma was engaged to a friend's brother-in-law who was a first-generation Irishman, a police officer.
Oh wow. Okay.
Okay, and it's interesting because in a previous episode, just recently, I had read a letter from my grandma to me because I started.
I listened to that
Oh,
episode.
good. And in that, she said that there was one who was, she didn't say she was engaged to him, but he was a police officer, but too close to his mother. So there must have been something there that, you know. Anyhow, Marie married John at the age of 32. They met at a city dance hall. John's parents were John and Sarah. John had had an adventurous youth.
Oh gosh, what does that mean?
Exactly. And so it's like, okay,
He's
this
a
is
rake.
yes, and this is my mom talking, so, you wonder what that is. John had an adventurous youth working as a bursar on a passenger ship on the Great Lakes. Well, then you put it in that context and you can kind of see that it would have been adventurous.
Yeah.
My mother says that he was a smart man, even though he did not finish high school. She remembers that he was always reading.
He
That's
passed that on for sure.
yeah. So I was a reader. You were a reader. Yeah.
Yeah, my cousin Christina, reader.
He finished the 11th grade at a Jesuit school, got into, quote, some trouble, and went for a short time to public school. So I just would have liked to have known what that trouble was.
Oh
And I,
yeah, because you
uh,
don't talk about that stuff, right?
right. And I don't even know if that mom knew what that was. It would have been interesting to find out. He had been raised in a more affluent situation than in what he lived as an adult and always felt cheated by life's dealings. He blamed others for his problems. He felt shame of not succeeding while seeing many of his high school classmates becoming lawyers and professionals. He grew up, of course, during the Great Depression. My mother recalls a story he used to tell about how the nuns required him to write with his right hand, even though he was left handed. At the time John and Marie married, my grandfather worked for the city of Buffalo as an assistant to a chemist.
Okay, science.
Science, that's what you're doing. And I relate to he was left-handed and they made him use his right hand. I was kind of like ambidextrous as a child too, and made to write with my right hand.
Because God forbid, right?
Yeah, because that's the evil or something. I don't know. But anyhow, it's so interesting this thing about Grandpa. He was always, um, he felt cheated, so that's where a lot of his
Well, I
stuff,
guess.
yeah, where that stuff came from. Marie had her first of two daughters right away at the age of 34. That daughter was my mother, uh, Patricia. Marie and the newborn stayed in the hospital 10 days after a normal delivery. It was the era of new technology, infant formula. Marie's second daughter, Mary Lou, was born there 3 years later. My mother thinks that Marie probably wanted girls because she was more used to raising girls, her sisters, but didn't have a strong preference. John preferred to have a boy, but it wasn't an issue that he had girls. Marie didn't have any more children because she was, quote, too old.
I mean, speaking as someone who probably is about the age she was when she stopped having kids, I can feel that.
So she was 37, and these are Catholics. How do you stop having children?
Well, you just stop doing stuff.
Well, and I'm thinking that's probably what they had to do. So that's one more reason maybe Grandpa was upset.
Maybe.
I don't know, but yeah. Um, when asked how Grandma didn't get pregnant, my mother said, "I don't know."
Oh no.
So, can you imagine me asking that? Because Mom didn't talk about these things.
Well, no, you don't talk about birth control. You're not supposed to, right? I mean,
Right. I asked if Marie used birth control, even though Grandma was Catholic, and Mom said, "Oh, she wasn't that religious."
oh, okay.
So I'm thinking,
Maybe.
yeah. And isn't that, can't you hear my mom say that?
Yeah, I
That's
can
her voice.
totally imagine that.
Yeah. Oh, she wasn't that religious. However, my mother didn't know, and she never asked. We never discussed these things either. Grandma raised the children without any help from her husband. John felt his role was to provide a paycheck, and that was all.
Hmm.
John was very much out of the picture as having any positive influence in my mother's life. Pat never remembers him coming to her graduations or other important events. John was an alcoholic, although at that time and in the social context in which they lived when my mother was growing up, it wasn't seen that way. After work, John and the other neighborhood men would go to the corner tavern. They often came home drunk, and the children were instructed to stay out of his way.
Oh, that makes me sad for little Pat.
Yeah, and for Grandma, too.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's awful.
Well, and then people didn't recognize it as,
Alcoholism. They
yeah.
just saw it as this is what men do, right?
Yeah. When asked about the marital relationship her parents had, my mother says she felt sorry for her mother. Her father yelled at her mother and the kids and was often drunk. Interestingly, his drinking apparently didn't affect his job, and he didn't have a car in the city, so he didn't drive drunk. Pat remembers a time when her father threw a bowl of soup on the floor because it wasn't hot enough. He never hit the kids or his wife. Grandpa often complained about religion, other ethnic groups, mostly Negroes or blacks, and about politics. I remember that when I was a kid. we'd go over there and sit with grandma and grandpa on their porch, and grandpa would go off on really negative things about Black African American people. And
And you're taught that you're a kid who just has to sit there and accept it. And
right, you can't talk back or, you know.
no.
My mother says that Marie never made excuses for her husband's behavior. She didn't complain and just accepted his drinking. Perhaps this was part of the responsibility my grandmother felt that she had to take in keeping with the cult of true womanhood. When my mother was in sixth grade, her mother bought a small business, a small neighborhood grocery. She bought this business on her own and managed it without her husband's help. She had received an inheritance from her father of about $700 to $800. She bought the property with this sum and borrowed against it for the needs of the store. She decided to invest her money this way because she couldn't get a job that paid very much, and she needed a job that would keep her near her home. There was no one to take care of childcare. The store was open 7 days a week from 8 a.m. to 11 p.m.
My goodness.
It was a lot of work, and Grandma was often tired. My mother worked in the store, often running it on her own, except for selling beer, which a nearby aunt would run over to sell. My mother was given the job of making bank deposits. She was given huge sums of money, $300 or $400 a month's receipts, to deposit. She would use her sister's bike to ride to a faraway bank. This was an awesome responsibility and one that was both a source of apprehension and pride for my mother. Besides helping out in the day, Pat worked one night a week while Grandma played cards with lady friends. So here are cards coming up in the family,
Yeah.
but also the idea of Grandma taking, you know,
Okay, daughter of mine, just watch the family business for
well,
me.
that one, because she was doing it during the day, it wasn't so surprising, but it was like making that a priority to go and hang out with her lady friends.
I mean, kind of good for her, man.
That's what I say. And of course, it wasn't Grandpa that came and ran the store at night when she had to go out, but
No.
wow.
No, but good for her though. I mean, that's, probably just much self-care she could probably get for herself. But
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and can you imagine little mom at sixth grade, and then moving into seventh and eighth? Remember yourself at that age and think about, maybe, well, certainly the excitement of running the store and having that responsibility, but then also the pain of that responsibility.
well, and hoping that there's no weirdos who come in, I mean, just safety. I mean, I guess times are different. People talk about stranger danger and all that stuff, and they probably had regular customers that they knew, but I mean, God forbid someone comes in that's, you know,
Yeah,
wanting to cause trouble.
right, or steal their stuff or whatever, and there's this little kid in there working. Y-
I can't even imagine. Like sixth grade me? Are you kidding me? No way.
Yeah, no, because you needed a babysitter yourself.
Absolutely. I wasn't running businesses. No way.
She also took turns with her mother going to church Sunday morning. Either Marie or my mother made sure dinner was ready. So there you go. You work all day and then you come
And then you
home.
cook all, and yeah, and it better be ready for your husband, and
Yeah,
soup better be hot, or he'll throw it on the ground.
yeah. My mother says she didn't really resent having to help out so much because she was proud of the fact that she could run the store. People thought she was much older than she was, even though she was short, because she could add up the purchases and give change with no difficulty.
Oh yes.
Both Grandma and Pat handled all the books, the inventory, and deliveries, all done in cash. My mother recounts this part of her life with enthusiasm. She stresses the amount of hard work she did and the level of responsibility she held, but the pride in her youthful independence is obvious. So cool. I mean, I
Yeah.
relate to that 1,000%.
Well, that was that entrepreneurial spirit, I guess, and just feeling like there was something that she could own in terms of like I'm helping and I'm doing this and I'm contributing, and I don't know, I'm trusted. I mean, because that's like you said, that's trust to be driving, a whole month's worth of money, through this was, New York, right?
Buffalo, New York.
So New York. A little kid, like, okay, like get this to the bank safe, man, because
Yeah.
we gotta eat this month.
Yeah. Yeah, you got to pay your bills and everything else.
Yeah.
My mother was paid $5 a week in allowance for her
Ooh.
expenses and transportation to a private Catholic school. The cost per month for school was $100.
Oh my gosh.
Church paid 30 and grandma paid 70. So I guess that's where, Grandma said, well, you're going to this nice school. You need to work. So,
A lot. I mean, if you're saying $300 is a month and they're paying 100, ooh.
well, 70. Yeah.
Okay, well, yeah, 70, but still.
My father says that Marie was a woman ahead of her time. In many respects, she was. She was strapped with the responsibility to raise her mother's children at a time when she would otherwise have been preparing her for marriage herself. She learned from this experience. She did marry and have children, but once in this situation, she was put in survival mode. Her marriage to a man who grew bitter with his growing disappointments in life was far from fulfilling. She did the best she could do. She went beyond the mainstream ideas of what work a woman could do. But this was at a time when women were permitted to the workplace because of the Depression and World War II. Just as other women were allowed temporarily into the industrial workplace, my grandmother also took advantage of opportunity in front of her as a way to make ends meet. But this didn't necessarily make Marie's a woman ahead of her time. Rather, it showed her intelligence, her persistence, and ambition. She established and maintained a small business out of need, the need of basic survival. So when my dad said that, he was very proud of. He loved his mother-in-law, my grandma, and was proud of her. And but see, my dad was also a person of his time, saying, she was a woman ahead of her time. But really, she's just a smart person who's hardworking and does what she needs to do because she didn't have to do the things.
No, but if she wanted to give herself her and her family the life that she wanted, or that she had to do something. But I
Yeah.
guess you could say she was, I don't know, quote unquote, ahead of her time, and that she even had the idea to say, hey, I'm going to take my money and have my business.
Hmm.
Because, there's some people who probably would have not even considered that as something to do.
Yeah. Yeah. Ahead of her time.
Well,
All right. So now we move into the section about my mom, your grandma. My mother had a difficult time trying to explain what she had learned from her mother. She paused and then summed up her approach to life. If you don't have money, get a good job.
I mean, yeah, I guess. Sometimes easier said than done, but yeah.
It's so funny because this sounds a lot like my wife. It's the same thing. She's
Good
like,
job.
it's all about getting a good job, having the money, and it is about, I think that, I mean, that boomer part of our upbringing, because even, coming out of the World War II time and everything, it's all about work hard, pull yourself up by the bootstraps, have a good job, make money. Don't depend on anybody but yourself. And
Well, yeah, and they were used to a time of not having things,
right,
and where money really was the thing that was gonna change your quality of life. I mean, at a
right.
fundamental level. So yeah, it is about the money, and they're not wrong. I mean, I wouldn't say money is the only thing, but that is kind of coming from a place of privilege. Because if you don't have money in this world, you kind of don't have anything.
So is that as true today as you think it was then? Do you think this is the same good wisdom that then that you know
I
she
mean,
was raised with? Yeah.
sure, get a good job if you can. It is. I have to say, it is a little different now. I mean, just the expectations of what you need to even get a job, and there's just a plethora of people all fighting for the same things. And at least in my case, I am working in agriculture, and the city is an agricultural haven. And that's just how it is. And so, because of that, there's a million other agricultural people looking for the same, 10 jobs. And, it's like, good luck, have fun.
Well, then you got to think about,
Other
other
things.
types of jobs or moving to other places and
Retiring.
Putting on new tread. Yes.
And you try.
Oh, very nice.
I
Thank
listen.
you. You listen.
I listen.
Woohoo. All right. Well, there's mom. If you and it's funny because when I'd go visit her in her memory care place. Um, she when she still recognized who I was, which was up until recently, I would say, um, you know, this year.
Yeah.
Um, up until this year, then she would always say, "So, are you still working or how's school?" And I'd say, "Oh, I'm retired." She goes, "Well, how can you retire? Do you have a pension?" "Yes." "Oh, okay, that's all right." Or I'd talk about a trip that I went on. "How can you afford that? Where do you get the money to do that?" And then I'd say, "Mom, I have a
I
good
have
job.
money. Yeah.
I had a good job."
Well, so that goes to show that even in her declining mental state, she was thinking about money and where were you going to get your money to be secure?
And for thinking of our kids too. And this is, I mean, when I think about it, reflect on this now, it's like, wow. For for this was 25 years ago when I did this interview of her, and that was something I knew about her, that I felt all the time growing up, and she held true to that. That was definitely a core of who she
It
was.
was that fundamental,
Yeah.
literally other things are going, but you remember that you need money.
Yeah. Well, and with her memory, she was going farther back in the past. So this would have been that's one of her founding um, thoughts, approaches to life.
I
So,
mean, it does make me wonder what kind of conversations or fights or whatever that her parents were having. Because, I mean, obviously, just existing in the world, you know how important money is, but it does make you wonder what
yep,
was she hearing, you know?
yep. Well, wasting money at the tavern, probably. All right. She said, mom said she didn't want to have to work as hard as her mother did and was determined to go to college in order to always have a good insurance policy in case something happened and so as not to have to depend on a husband.
Good for her.
Wow.
Good for her.
Radical feminist here. I love it.
Yeah.
Pat said that she never thought of her college education as a teacher, as a waste, although many of her peers felt that it was for them. She says she didn't go to college to look for a husband. She wanted to earn good money and have the summers off and travel. As a girl, she had dreamed of being a journalist.
Oh,
Higher education for her children was a given.
and that's amazing. That came from somewhere.
Yeah.
Come from parents who were not well educated
Yep.
to say, you know what? No, I want to not have to work so hard. Let's do this.
And she knew she could do it. She had the persistence, she had the skills, she had the smarts,
Yeah.
and she made it happen. It was kind of amazing. She had jobs that paid for it. She paid for it herself. Her mom helped her out, but it was her. She paid it her own way, just like her mother had done for herself. So
Amazing.
yeah, it's interesting because she says she didn't go to college to look for a husband, but I remember a time, and maybe I talked about this in the podcast. I don't remember, but I remember when we were moving to from Florida to West Lafayette, where Purdue University is. And we were driving around and looking at the campus, and she said, turned to me, I was in the back seat. She goes, "Sue, you can't find a husband here, you won't find one," or something to that nature. Or, "Sue, you
Oh.
can't find an engineer here." And I'm like, I don't want to go to school to get a husband.
Go get your engineer
I would be
husband.
totally excited just to go to school because it's exciting and fun and interesting. And I don't need an engineer. Mom, you chose the engineer, not me.
But the funny thing is you would think that would be different, but I've heard the same kind of stuff now. Like go find your husband in college.
Really?
Oh yeah. I mean, I think it's less like, oh, that is the only reason, but people do bring up that's kind of when you meet people, you know?
That's true. Do you think the same people say the same thing to their son?
I mean, I don't know. I mean,
Because you'd want a
go get yourself
well-educated
a wife,
a
right?
well-educated spouse, right?
I haven't really asked. I would be curious to talk to somebody, a man, be like, "Hey, were people saying go look for your wife here?"
Or if you happen to find a good gal, this is a good place to do it because you're at school.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's an interesting question. My mother also had a difficult time determining how she is like her mother, although she immediately responded that she thought she was like her. She said, "As I've gotten older, I think I am like my mother, but I don't know how. I'm not sentimental, but I have a sense that I am like her." That
That's interesting. So she can't really put her a word on any words to what she feels about it, but she just knows that she is.
yeah. And then listen to this part. She says she sees her father in herself, smart and a reader.
Well, she took the good parts. And
Yeah.
and and, and you can have, unfortunately, we are the sum of the good and the bad, you know.
And then she conceded that she is like her mother with people skills, friendly, outgoing, kind, makes friends easily. I was like, "Yay, mom, you
There
saw
you
it."
go.
I see that my mother learned much, much more from her mother than what she professes to have learned. My mother saw her mother as someone who got out there and worked for what she needed, a survivor. In a sense, that too is my mother. Life presented one major branch, to marry or not, and she chose to be married at the age of 22. From that moment on, she survived a societally predetermined path, having 4 children, taking the primary responsibility for raising them, being actively involved in her children's lives, being a housewife, a grandmother, etc. She sought what she needed. She stated that in raising us, I did things my own way.
Hey.
She did. She did do things. I love this because when I see this is so fun revisiting this because I'm seeing myself 25 years younger. The lens that I'm using is I just had a little kid.
Yeah.
I'm now a senior citizen. And so I'm seeing this a whole different way than I see my mom now from this vantage point. But I did things my own way. I love that because that was like the theme that we had for dad's celebration of life.
Yeah, I did it my
Yeah.
way.
Yeah.
Oh, so did she.
They both did. That's kind of cool. She was strict, but I talk more with you kids than my mother did to me. My mother has always been strong and independently dependent. I like that sentence.
Independently dependent.
Yeah.
I can see how that is because, she's not going to just lay down and take whatever the world necessarily tells her to do, but at the same time, she is dependent.
And she's totally following her roles and
Yeah.
everything. Yeah. I observed that from her mother, she learned persistence, a strong belief in herself and her value, responsibility, a strong sense of duty, honesty, integrity, and sacrifice.
Ooh, sacrifice.
She has passed that legacy on to me.
And you guessing you can only feel that even more now.
Well, it's interesting because
Hope the sacrifice part, maybe you're learning to not do quite so much.
well, that's what I'm saying. I'm looking at this as myself 25 years ago, and I was feeling the pressure of all that stuff. I was feeling the pressure of responsibility, duty, and sacrifice. And it's like, it's almost too much because you lose yourself.
Yeah.
And those are the years that I started actively losing myself, I think.
I could see that. I mean, that would have been me in my young childhood. And yeah, I mean, you were, even though I know my father was there and he did contribute his own things. Yeah, I mean, you were the primary caregiver.
Well, it's interesting because I think that when you go through life at that time, that age, you're playing all these stupid roles because that's all you know and all you've seen and all it's been modeled for you. You do that, and then you're doing all the things, and you're still not feeling like you. I think you
Yeah.
get pulled into the roles, and you lose yourself. And when it's not fully fulfilling, yeah, my marriage was not doing well, and I think had it, then maybe I would feel differently. I don't know.
Well, I mean, I was saying the title of the class where person was the last thing.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not even a mother, but I can see how society really, it's like this really creepy thing where they both uplift like this perfect idyllic wife, mother that just does everything. She's super mom. She works full time, but like comes, is sharply dressed, comes home, makes dinner, and takes her kid to soccer practice and does all these things. But in that, it's like at the same time, where is the respect for that? For all that suffering, I mean, 'cause that's suffering at some, you're not.
Well, you feel excited and happy to do those things, especially for the people that you love, and you see that come back to you. But if it's not all there, and it's a lot, and imagine having financial problems on top of this, or
Absolutely.
yeah, or you're working, your boss is difficult to work with, or you lose your job. I mean, so people are dealing with this stuff all the time, and um, yeah, it's hard.
Yeah, it's I think there needs to be more said that to be a parent and specifically a mother doesn't mean you have to be a martyr, You don't
Right.
have to that yes, do everything you can for your kids, but part of doing everything for your kids is showing them that you also matter
Right.
because if you are showing that you don't matter, then when you get older, then well, okay, when do I stop mattering anymore? Because clearly that's
Yes, and that gets passed on, and yet, now I'm seeing this thing with grandma had her ladies' night with playing cards. It's like,
do love that. So
yeah,
she held on to something.
yeah. For me, a sad insight came when Pat was asked if she had a bond with her mother. She said, "No, she's dead." There was an empty pause. I sensed that there was much my mother would have liked to have said, but she had never been able to say. All the emotions remained jailed up inside, never to be shared, and building a bond between us. Occasionally there are tears in her life, just as there are as I write this. I have always wished that my mother and I could sit down and discuss our lives. No, she is too close to do so. This is interesting. You talked about martyrdom. Her shield of martyrdom will not allow this.
Well, yeah, because you can't complain. It's the very German thing, right?
Right, but it's also you can't let that show to your children.
Well, and also once you let it go, then you have to process it, and then you have to show your weakness, so to say. Even though
Yep.
I wouldn't see it that way,
Yep.
but
If that shield were ever to break, her incredible strength would be shattered. She would realize more completely the scars of her life and would feel ashamed for allowing them to affect her so.
yeah,
We have difficulty even saying I love you to each other, even though we know completely that we do love each other. See, that's changed. Yeah, that changed in 25 years. So 25 years ago, that's where we were. But as all the kids were out of the house, all of my mom's kids were out of her house, as her kids were adults or becoming adults and had their own children or not, um, that's when, I guess when grandchildren came into the play, where you'd say, "Oh, mom, I love you," and she would say, "I love you too." It's like, whoa, where did that come from? Because we didn't do that in my household growing up. I mean,
yeah. I mean, I remember you telling me this even when I was younger that how very strict your parents were, and it just always seemed so weird because the grandma I always knew and the grandpa I always knew were very like like jolly for lack of a better, not even jolly, but like they were I don't know. I mean, always very pleasant and cheerful and happy, and there wasn't this, like, sense of I don't know. It was hard to imagine them being the strict parents that they were.
even on her deathbed, we're talking to the caregivers who know my mom, and of course, her personality is all changed and everything. And but mom was very particular, and she would be
Mhm.
sarcastic with her humor, which was kind of funny to hear and see because she wasn't that way in her normal life. But I described her as being my mother was very strict with us when we were kids, and the caregivers go, "Oh, we thought so. I imagined so." And
Oh my
it's
god.
interesting because I don't really. As soon as she was released from the parenting role, the active parenting role, because I don't think you ever lose your parenting role, but the active parenting role, she became more herself. She didn't have to control everything
Yeah.
and make sure everything was going right. and she stopped being strict.
Yeah, because she was never, I mean, she wasn't lax with the grandkids, but she was never strict.
Right. Never strict, which, like, as I guess, observing, you're like, hold it. How come you couldn't have done that with me? And then I'm not of that cognizant being able to think of it that way because I'm right in the middle of what she was having to survive. Isn't that that's interesting?
No, that is kind of funny that they're like, "Oh, I can imagine that she would have been strict."
Yeah, and then, dad, back in those days, they were both very strict, and, there was a lot of yelling at us to make us do the things, and spanking was a big thing. Oh, I got a spanking story, but I'll save that for another time. But spanking was a thing, and, nowadays spanking's not. So, yeah, interesting.
Well, yeah, and that's what I'm saying. I can't imagine like sweet Grandma Pat with her wooden paddle.
You should see her angry.
No, and I did see a little bit of that, like a little tiny bit of that when I saw her last. Where she was getting kind of angry. I didn't see a full blown anger or anything, but
You mean in dementia?
yes,
Yeah, she was agitated.
she
Yeah.
was agitated, and I hadn't really ever seen that growing up.
Interesting that you say that. Yeah.
Yeah, because I don't think I really like remember seeing her agitated as at anything other than maybe grandpa, but, it was never directed towards anyone else.
Right. It was just a thing that she was expressing.
Yeah.
Okay. I would like my mother to know that her struggles and sacrifices to rear her daughter have been vindicated. I feel strongly that a bond to a loved one can transcend death. I love my mother and I feel very connected to her, even though we are not intimately close. I will always feel a bond to her that I cannot put into words, and I hope that the bond my daughter and I have will be one that is more intimate.
I think you succeeded. I hope. I hope you feel like you succeeded.
Well, it's interesting because again, I don't think we were ever intimate, but there were some times when I would say a few things or ask a few things, or when I came out, she talked about that a bit too, and so those are things we'd never would have talked about in life, in reality, and so I guess she just didn't have as much on her plate and could handle those things. I don't know, but we went on a lot of vacations, and I got to know her in a different way, and that really helped me with being able um, to fulfill her wishes at end of life too. I mean, if I hadn't have known her, I wouldn't have been able to do those things.
I guess that is something that is just so important because, you know, going through these losses, it really does make you think about, okay, well, at some point, who's the next one? And you have to think about what do they want? Because the reality is, if you're not thinking about it now, God forbid when you're in the middle of feeling all your feelings, everything's coming at you all at once, and you've never thought about it before.
Yeah, it's too late. You're probably not going to be true to yourself. You gotta, yeah, I think you have to put things out there and try them out and see how they land for yourself and for others, and that's how you develop your feelings about stuff.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate this series you've done because it really I think not only is it kind of a healing thing, I imagine, for you and for me, but I think it's just something that is important to to talk about because the memories are important. The love and all that stuff is important, but just the realities, the like nitty-gritty, dirty, unfun realities of death and life
Yeah.
just so important to talk about. And part of that is knowing your family, knowing your people.
It's true because, when you're a kid or when you're a teenager or you're young adults, like your parents, you're gonna want to protect your children from things, and that you can't. Some things are not appropriate to share,
Yeah.
and but there are ways to talk about important information without it being inappropriate. At a for a age or for the person at that time, or to because if you don't want to bog someone down, there are
No.
things that parents and children don't always need to know.
But I mean, I remember, I don't remember the movie. There was a movie growing up where somebody passed. I don't even remember the context of the movie whatsoever. But the part I do remember is that the ashes were going to the earth, and then some went to the sky, and some went to the water. And I remember, I mean, I was a kid when we were talking about this.
Yeah.
And so you did take that opportunity to
Yeah.
talk to me about, like, this is the kind of, even if it's not this exact thing, that idea of I want to go back.
Yeah.
I want to go back.
That celebrate. Yeah. And so
And it
that,
wasn't scary and
and
creepy as a
right.
kid.
And
So,
I tried talking about those things with you in appropriate ways all the way through. And I think we've done pretty well. Um, I miss having you around more in my life.
yeah.
And see, just saying that is not like I'm not putting a burden on you to do things, but I am telling you the things that, if you don't know, then you maybe don't know. But yeah, I'm happy for more time with you and
Yeah. Mother.
me.
Stop. Yeah, no, and
Oh, mother,
I
stop.
know, I true, and I do, and I'm so glad that we live close, because I imagine getting to know your mother was much harder, living in a different state. Of course, I'll never know you completely because I'm not you, and I'm your daughter, and you're always gonna see your mother as your mother, and
Yeah, my daughter is my daughter here.
but I do think that at least at some base level, I understand you. I hope.
Mhm. I think you do. I think you see me
Oh,
a lot more than a lot of people do. So.
oh, oh,
Okay, when asked if she wanted to be a mother, Pat answered, "Sure, that's what you did in those days."
sure. Oh
All
no,
my friends thought that way too, even with our college educations.
sure.
Sure.
Oh no.
My mother's deservedly proud of her college education. She said, "There are not many women with college educations in the 50s. She feels had she had the same opportunities I had, I could have done what I wanted. I could choose to get married. I wish I had gone back to school." Interesting. I wonder what she would have done had she gone back to school.
Who knows, man? Because I try to think about what I know about her. You
I
know,
don't see her in education.
no, no.
She would have been a good manager.
Bless her, but no. I don't know. I mean, always was part of the library when she was retired.
True.
So maybe she would do something kind of like that.
That'd be cool.
Could be a librarian.
Yeah, had she wanted to go back to school, because school's fun. I mean,
Yeah. Until it's not, but
okay. In thinking over my own childhood, I remembered many times when my mother was very angry and very sad. Sometimes that anger and sadness was inadvertently directed to us children, rather than where the anger should have been directed. There was anger at her circumstance, herself, my father, and society. My mother has never said this, but I could feel this and understand that this even when I was quite young. Because mom would get very impatient with us. She's a patient person, but very angered about it. And I think it was more, I knew there was something more going on there
yeah.
when I was a kid. Um, I understood it. I could never put it into words. So here's the author says, in snapshots of the period, I see a smiling young woman. I have a collection of the same snapshots of my mother. I know they're not a full representation of my mother. In fact, I used to tease my parents about how fakey their smiles were for posed photos. I look at my own photographs as a mother, knowing full well what lies under the images that are seen by others.
Yeah. Yeah, you put on the smile and you don't know what crazy stuff is going on in your head, or what, I don't know, struggles you're going through.
There's certain photographs too that I know exactly what I was feeling and thinking at the time, and they're forever etched in that image. And I don't forget it. I don't forget that at all. Other photos that, it's just a photograph.
Yeah.
Don't. But maybe I can't see what I was feeling, but I definitely remember what I was feeling. Now, are you curious about which photographs I'm talking
I mean,
about?
definitely yeah, a little bit. And I'm also just trying to think if I can relate to that in any way, cuz I think photography is a little bit different now because it is just so cash. You just
Oh,
pull out your phone, boom, 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 and it really truly isn't associated with anything. It just is. So maybe it's not quite so impactful since we're just taking pictures all the time.
well, and for me, I've always been a very visual person, photographic person. That was my original majors as I went into college was going to be photography, but
Yeah.
switched to television, radio production. Thank goodness. But I think that way. I see things that way.
See, it's funny. I think when look at pictures, I remember more like maybe the things in it, which is really weird. Like I'll be like, "Oh, I remember that dress," and then I don't necessarily remember the circumstances of that picture, but I'll be like, "Oh, I remember really loving that blue dress. I really remember it." I don't know.
From my perspective as an observer, I see indirect actions as the working mechanism of my parents' marriage. Both my parents have difficulty in actually telling the other what they really want, what is really valuable and important to them. This has created indirect communication between them for nearly 40 years. That's back then.
Wow, it was already
65.
40.
I believe that the best word to describe my mother's approach to marriage is conformity. The models of what a woman's life was like when she grew up always included marriage and children. There was never a question that these were things she wanted too. She saw societal's view of womanhood as nurturer to her husband and children. She envisioned stability, economic security, and comfort as her primary concerns. My parents have managed thus far to find a way to work it out, but working it out isn't always enough.
Yeah. 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 Yeah, no, I don't think they were taught to analyze their own feelings. You just do the thing that you're supposed to do and that's it.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter what you think. You just suck it up and do it.
That wraps up this episode of a special limited series entitled Moving On from the Retired Podcast. This has been the first part of a conversation with my daughter about the recent death of my mom, her grandmother. And we hope you'll listen to the next episode coming up next week. Thanks.